Okay, so before we get started with today's lecture, I just have a couple of announcements that I want to make. So this year, as you all probably know, is the 10th anniversary for MCYU. And we're celebrating this milestone in a number of different ways. One of the ways that we would like to celebrate this is by having all of our MCYU kids and our families put in their best memories of MCYU into a video montage. And there are instructions on our website on how you can submit this video. We're going to be taking videos up until about the middle of the spring. And then what we're going to do is we'll share all of those videos in a nice montage towards the end of this academic year. So towards the end of our MCYU lectures year, we'll share all of the videos. One of the other ways that we're also going to be sharing the 10th anniversary year is with our Join the Journey effort. And so Join the Journey is a series of events that you can participate in. And we have lots of events. This lecture is one of those events, and Aaron is going to talk about how you can include this event as part of your Join the Journey event towards the end of this lecture. But we also have lots of community partners like the Boys and Girls Clubs who are participating in Join the Journey, and they have events at their Ellis Avenue Center that you can participate in for getting credit for Join the Journey. I think Aaron is going to put the link into how you can donate to Boys and Girls Clubs as well as part of Join the Journey. So take a look at that link. And with that, I think we're going to get started with our lecture. But before we do, I just want to have you think about our land acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. The territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We must recognize, like the peoples of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations, that the Dish represents a common area of land, and the one spoon means that we all have to share this land equally. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this land and recognize deeply and appreciate their historic and contemporary connections to this place. While this acknowledgement can be a good start, we encourage all of you to continue to learn about the land you are on and take action to decolonize. For example, we encourage you to learn more about the Dish with One Spoon Treaty and the Wampum Belt Agreement. Also, check out this interactive map. The link is there, and maybe, Aaron, you can put that link in the chat as well. So visit that link so you can learn a little bit more about the land that we all share. And with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Adrianne Xavier. Dr. Xavier is a professor at McMaster University who teaches contemporary Indigenous issues, Indigenous food security and food systems, Indigenous food sovereignty, and Indigenous ways of knowing, and how we study all of these. She was awarded the Petro-Canada McMaster Young Innovator Award in 2021-22, and she's been using that money to really include undergraduate students. So those are the students that come to McMaster to understand how we do research around the Indigenous peoples and focus on building a sense of community. And with that, I want to introduce Dr. Xavier. Go ahead, Dr. Xavier.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Adrianne Xavier. I'm starting out, and I'm going to tell you guys right up front, if you hear someone in the background, it's because my niece, who you might have seen, is in the other room, and she's really just interested in having me go back downstairs to watch TV with her. She'll just have to wait. But I want to talk to you guys today, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to start out today actually, and I'm going to tell you guys a story. So, as mentioned, I do a lot of work with food and food security, which is actually a topic that relates to having enough food. When we talk about security, we're talking about, is there enough? Do we have all the things that we need? Do we get to have choices of the food that we have? And we don't always. And that's one of the things that I like to spend time talking about, learning about. And a story that started a long time ago. So I live at Six Nations, which is about 45 minutes from McMaster, my house. And in my community, one of our stories from a long, long time ago is the story of the three sisters. So I'm going to tell you the story first, and then I will tell you a bit more about those sisters. So a long, long time ago, there were three sisters who lived together in a field. The sisters were different from one another in size and also in the way that they dressed. One was a little sister, young, and she could only crawl at first. She was dressed all in green. The second was of the three, she was a little bit older. She wore a frock or a dress of really bright yellow, and she had a way of running off by herself when the sun was shining and the wind was blowing softly in her face. The third sister was the oldest, and she would stand straight and tall over the other sisters, trying to guard them, looking after them. She wore a pale green shawl, and she had long yellow hair that flopped around in the breeze. The only way that the three sisters were alike was that they loved each other very dearly. They were never apart. They were sure that they would not be able to live apart. After a while, a stranger came to the field, a little Mohawk boy. He was straight as an arrow and fearless as the eagle that circled the sky. He knew the way of talking to the birds and the small animals of the earth, the shrew and the chipmunk and the young foxes. And the three sisters, the one who was just able to crawl, and the one in the yellow frock, the girl with the flowing hair, they were all very interested in him. They watched him fit his arrow into his bow. They saw him carve a bowl with a stone knife, and they wondered where he went at night. Late in the summer, the first coming of the Mohawk boy, one of the three sisters disappeared. It was the youngest sister in green, the one who could only creep around. She was barely able to stand alone in the field unless she had a stick to which she held on to. Her sisters mourned until the fall, but she did not return. Once more, the little Mohawk boy came to the field. He came to gather reeds at the edge of the stream nearby to make arrow shafts. The two sisters who were left watched him, and they gazed with wonder at the print his moccasins and the earth left that marked his trail. That night, the second of the sisters also disappeared, the one who was dressed in yellow and always wanted to run away. She left no mark of her going, but it may have been that she set her feet in the moccasin tracks of the little Mohawk boy. Now there was only one sister left. Tall and straight, she stood in the field, not once bowing her head with sorrow, but it seemed she could not live there alone. The days grew shorter and the nights were colder. Her green shawl faded and grew thin and old. Her hair, once long and golden, was tangled in the wind. Day and night she sighed for her sisters to return, but they did not hear her. Her voice, when she tried to call them, was low and plaintive like the wind. One day, when it was the season of the harvest, the little Mohawk boy heard the crying of the third sister, who had been left in the field to mourn. He felt sorry for her, and he took her in his arms, and he carried her to the lodge of his father and mother. What a surprise awaited him there! Her two lost sisters were in the lodge of the little Mohawk boy, safe and very glad to see her. They had been curious about the boy, and they had gone home with him to see how and where he lived. They liked his warm cave so well that they decided that the winter was coming to stay with him, and they were going to do all that they could to be useful. The little sister in green, now quite grown up, was helping to keep the dinner pot full. The sister in yellow sat on the shelf drying herself, for she planned to be in the dinner pot later. The third sister joined them, ready to grind meal for the native boy. And they were never separated again. So, it sounds like a story of three little girls and their sisters, and they are. But in this story, what those three was actually something different. So the little boy knew how to talk to the animals and the plants. And the plants that he talked to when he came to the field were corn, beans, and squash. So the oldest sister was the corn. She stood tall and she watched over her sisters. The smallest sister was beans. And if you've ever seen beans grow, they can only climb when they have something else to stand on. They will wrap around things and they have little curly arms that hold on to things. And her job was to crawl up her oldest sister. The middle sister was a squash. And she does, if you've ever seen squash grow, it spreads out in the field, it wanders around and it goes far and wide. And what happens with them is, in my community, what I learned a long, long time ago, and we've known for a really long time, is these three sisters grow best together. So when they went home with that little boy, their job to help him, because he had cared for them and they wanted to care for him, was to fill his soup pot or to be his dinner. As sisters, that's their job. But as sisters, they also had jobs to do for each other. So sometimes when I tell this story, I'll ask people if they are a little sister. Are they beans or are they corn or are they squash? Because each of us has that same kind of role in our family. Even if you think, well, there's only one and I'm an only child, you get to have all of those roles. Sometimes you were the oldest because you were the first. Are you one of those roles? You get to be, are you the oldest or the youngest or the middle?
I'm the only one. So
You're the only one? So you're all of them. You are really extra lucky, because that means that sometimes as the first one, you know that you get to watch your family and you get to experience things first. And sometimes you're going to want to hold on tight to your parents, and they will be like the oldest sister was for her sisters. And you will have times when you want to run free in the field and feel the wind on your face, because you will grow and you'll get to spread out like the middle sister did. So you get to be all of them. I have an older brother, so I learned really young that I got to do things because I watched him. So that's what happens sometimes when you have an older sibling. I have someone that spends a lot of time with my family now, and they treat themselves and act like the little sister. So for the first time in my life, I get to be the middle sister. And it's never happened for me before because I was the youngest. I was always those beans. So I wanted to start the story with those ones because I really like the idea of two parts of that. The first part is that having a spot and a role in your family doesn't mean it's the only one you'll ever have, but it does mean that you get to understand how it is to work together as a family. So those sisters worked and grew together really well. But what they did after the fact was they also worked really hard to feed each other and the family that they moved in with, which is that Mohawk family. So when corn, beans, and squash grow together, they grow best that way because they each have a job to do. Corn does stand tall, and it's normally planted in the middle of the garden. So we do mounds of them. So in the middle, we plant corn, and outside of that, we plant our beans. And like I said before, those beans, they climb, and they have something to climb because that corn grows tall fast. Outside of those beans, we have the middle sister, and they don't grow in order that way. So the middle sister, because she loves to run, we put her on the outside. And if any of you have ever seen or grown squash of any kind, pumpkins, acorn squash, butternut squash, spaghetti squash, all of those things, they grow that way because they have something that I never really thought about. They're kind of prickly. So all of the stems on those squash are really sharp and kind of prickly. What that does is it protects the baby and it protects the oldest sister so that those critters, the little chipmunks and squirrels and all the stuff that you see running around out in the trees, they can't get to the middle. The other thing that happens is squash leaves grow big, like really big. And they're tipped up a little bit like this. So just at the ends, they stand up a tiny bit. And when it rains, the water runs down their leaves like a water slide and back towards the middle of the garden, which means that all three plants get watered at the same time because those leaves catch all of that rain, like a big umbrella that's upside down. So because of that, they grow really well together. The other thing that happens is beans do something that corn really needs. What they do is they put nitrogen back into the ground, which is part of the science of this. Corn grows extra good when it has more nitrogen. So when the beans grow, they put it back into the soil. So the ground actually gets more nitrogen. The other thing is because beans are the first ones to come, they get lots of fruit and they get those little bean pods and you collect them. The beans will then die back, which is how come that she was the first sister to disappear. When he harvested the beans, the plant that had grown from her settled back onto the ground. And as it decomposed and went back into the earth, it put more nitrogen back into the ground. They work so well that they make more beans, more corn, and more squash will all grow from that one mound. It tells a story of how we need to work together and how growing things together really actually makes it work better and we get more, which is part of the reason why for me food security is a big deal, because we have more, we can help feed each other. And if we have enough food at home, then we can also make sure that our friends and our family and our neighbors have enough too. So when we talk about this, when I talk about this with people, one of the things that I like to remind people is that you might not have a lot of space to grow a mound, but you have enough space everywhere to grow something. And that for me is the big conversation, because if we all know how to grow something, we can share with someone else. So in all of the conversations that I have, and my nieces in the background asking me questions, one of the things that I like to talk about is I ask people, do you know where your food comes from? And tell me what your favorite one is. I have lots of favorite foods, but there's a couple that I will tell you about. And one of them is actually from the story that I just told you. So there is something that we have, and it's called Three Sisters Soup, which is exactly what that little Mohawk boy was talking about. Now, I'm not talking about cooking your sibling if you have a sister. That's not right. I'm not talking about cooking the plant either. I'm talking about cooking the part that comes from the plant. So how many of you have ever had squash soup, as an example? Sometimes it can be chunks of squash. Sometimes it's a creamy soup. For us, and what my mom does is she puts corn, beans, and squash in a soup. And she does it by roasting the squash, baking it in the oven or over the fire, and adding it to a broth. And then she adds the corn. And I'm going to tell you a story. Our corn in my community is not like the sweet corn that you find at the store. It's not available in the grocery store. It doesn't come in the freezer section. It's really hard, like really hard. So when it grows, it's almost like little stones. And what has to happen is it has to be boiled with hardwood ashes. And it creates a chemical reaction that turns the corn yellow for a little while, and then the outside of it comes off. And I can explain it. How many of you have ever seen popcorn? Our corn looks like white popcorn, and it's hard like popcorn. But when we boil it, that outside cover, the hard part, comes off, and then it opens up, and it's a bit soft and chewy inside. the three of them together are what we call our sustenance, because they are three things that can sustain you even if you have nothing else. So lots of different cultures and communities have this same kind of thing. I have a friend who also has his version of what would be Three Sisters soup, but he's from Mexico, and he has it has a different flavor because they add hot peppers, but it's those three same things growing together. I was really excited to come to talk to you guys today because at this time of year, the ground is cold. It's starting to have lots of water. We're going to get a lot of snow. But this is the time of year when I was a kid where we would talk all winter long about what we were going to grow the next year. What are the things that we're going to take with us and figure out? And did we save seeds for it? Did we get seeds? Because we got to choose some of the stuff that we put in the garden. My mom planted gardens and we always had food growing. But there were some times that I got to pick the things that we were going to put certain places. And I always had a favorite, which it still is my favorite to grow. I love to grow pumpkins. We'll grow pumpkins and we bake them and we save them because we use them in soup. They also make lovely pie. And I also love to grow now. I love to grow tomatoes. My mom got me tomatoes 2 years ago. And they were all really tiny, like the size of a pea. And they tasted like it was like pop rocks in my mouth because they would explode and it was super sweet. And so this is the time of year when we start looking. We look at the yard that we have. We look at the space where we could put a garden. And sometimes I've lived in places where the only space we could put was containers on the porch. And that still worked. I had a bucket 2 years ago for my little tiny tomato plant that turned out to have so many tomatoes. It was great. But in the winter is when we get to say, I want to grow this. Let's try this. Can we grow tomatoes? Can we grow big tomatoes? We have a tomato variety that we grow at my house that are called Big Uglies. And they get as big as my face, and they're shaped funny. They almost look like a squishy red pumpkin, but they're tiny and it's a tomato. And they're a really old variety. So that means that they've been around for a long, long time. That's right. That's exactly it. And that's how they look. They're not those perfect round small ones that you see in the store. They're big and they're lumpy and they taste so good. There's something to be said for, and there's something magical about the taste of the food that you grow in your yard. It's something that lots of people sometimes will do, and they do it because they like to show, or they enjoy the act of it. And that might be something you guys will try, and you find out is you love the part of digging in the dirt and turning over the soil and putting the seeds in and weeding and caring for it, watering. I don't mind watering, but my favorite is the planting part and the harvesting part. I can't help it. And part of that is because when I was little, I didn't love to get my hands all like mucky and dirty, and my mom always laughed. But now that's the part that I like, is that first step when you turned all the soil over in the springtime and it's ready and you put those seeds in, because that's the moment when you know that it's coming and it's not here yet, but you get to see the ground ready to grow food. And then the last part, I like the harvesting, because that's the part where you get to cook and you eat and you preserve food. My mom makes a lot of preserved food, so we can a lot. We make jams and jellies. We make chili sauces. We make salsa. We freeze tomatoes so that we can make sauces with it. We grow a lot of different things, though. We have eggplant. We have zucchini. My mom grows zucchini, and I will never understand it. Her zucchinis are huge, like big as my arm. And she doesn't mean for them to get that way all the time, but sometimes she forgets to harvest them or she misses them. And in a day or two, they just get gigantic. And those are all the things that we talk about, because I could never not plant zucchini, but we don't plant a whole bunch. And sometimes it's a trial thing and you just test stuff out. Sometimes I'll ask, can we grow this? And that's how we started growing eggplant. And it's one of my favorites now, but I, for the longest time, wasn't really sure about it. But that's the best part of gardening. That's the best part of growing food, is that if you're not sure and you try it and it's not your favorite, it might be something you like later in life. It might be something that you try cooked a different way. But even if it's not something that you absolutely love, there is nothing more exciting than having something you've grown and giving it to someone, sharing it with your neighbor or giving it to a friend or making something out of it and then giving it to someone. There's all of these options and opportunities for people to share food, recipes, and it doesn't even stop there, because when you start to garden or grow food, you get to make new friends, because you're going to find there are other people who will stop and they'll ask questions. What are you growing? What does that grow like? And people who garden then will connect with each other so that they can talk about what it is that they have grown. Well, I'm growing this. If you're growing that, then you can trade. Sometimes people have a real gift for growing just one thing. For the longest time, I thought for me it was tomatoes. And now I think for me it might actually be eggplant. But we get to try all of these different things. So when I talk to my students, I tell them all of these same stories, because I want them to know that they can also connect to food in this way, and they can connect to being outside and doing things in the garden. There's something magical that happens, and I will say that I call it magic, and I'm sure there's science to it. But there's something magical that happens when you put your hands in the soil and you dig and you clean and you work up that soil and you get it ready for the garden and you put the seeds in the ground. And those are the moments when you can stop and you talk to your seeds, you talk to your plants. Some people I know, there's seed songs that you can sing to them, and there's the more time that you can spend talking and being with your plants, the better they will grow and the better you will feel. So even still to this day, after all these years, those three sisters and all of their relatives still do the same thing. They live their lives and they work together, but they want to give back to us as well. So when we do things, we feel better just by being with them, by being able to spend time in the garden, by being able to dig in the dirt, and then also by being able to talk to them. That's what they want. And yeah, there is science to it. It's actually good for them to experience our breath on their bodies, to hear that bit of wind, to feel that, and to get it's a chemical reaction, but it does a chemical reaction in our bodies too. It makes us happy. Kind of like for some people, eating chocolate makes us happy. It has that same feeling. And that's part of what growing food does for us. It also changes things, because there's something about eating a tomato that's warm still from the sunshine, and it just pops in your mouth. Cucumbers are the same. My mom loves that. She loves warm cucumbers in the summertime when she's just plucked them. Takes a knife outside and she nips the end off and she slices a cucumber right out in the field. We have a lot of gardens around my house, and there's different ones that I want to put in, but we have a lot of gardens. When we started, I told you the story of the three sisters, and we talked about where we fit in that family. And like I said, we all have that spot in our lives. We all have that spot in our family. And it doesn't matter if you have a family of 100 or you're a family of one. You still are all of those things. You have the chance to be that person for yourself, and you have the chance to be that person for other people. That's part of what the great thing about growing food and sharing food is. Because if you are, even if you're an only child and you have a friend, you might have a friend who loves the things that you make, or you might discover they've never had them and you get to introduce them to it. That's the most exciting part for me of cooking food as well. When we first talked about it, and me being a guest, I was kind of excited to come, but I wasn't really sure what else I would want to tell you guys. This story is one of my favorites. But the other thing that I found was I wanted you guys to know how much it means to me to be able to talk about this story. because it's not just food that changes things. It's also telling you guys the story. Because when you know the story, now you can tell that story to someone else, and you can tell your parents and your aunties and your friends that you want to grow food so that you know where your food comes from, so that you can share it with your friends, and so that you can find ways to enjoy the food that is from here. And not just like from here, but where do you get your food, right? I started at the beginning. Where's your food from? Do you go to a market? Do you go to a grocery store? Do you get to enjoy picking it out? Do you have a favorite vegetable yet? Do you have a favorite food? I'm going to tell you guys, and I'm going to talk just for a few more minutes. One of my favorite foods is eggplant. And I'm going to tell you really quickly why that is. About 8 years ago now, I was in, ooh, you are spot on. About 8 years ago, I went to China, and I went into a restaurant with my teacher, and he ordered something. He said, I think you're going to like this. And it was fried eggplant. And it was cut into strips, and it was fried in a pan with some oil and spices. And there were some bites that were really spicy and some bites that were really sweet. And it wasn't like fried, like coated or like French fries, but just like cooked so that it got soft. It to this day is still my favorite dish, maybe ever. And that's saying a lot because my mom cooks some amazing food. But I loved it, and there was nothing else in it. They put some green onions on the top, and that was it. And I actually had to ask. I'm like, I need to know. First of all, are we ever coming back here? He said we can get food here again before we leave. And I said, okay, well, I want to, because I didn't know that I loved eggplant so much. I found a restaurant near my house now, here at home, that does eggplant. And every once in a while, the cook will cook it, and it takes me back right to that day, sitting in that restaurant in China. And it makes me happy just to think about it. And I know that food and gardening have that potential. And I want you guys to think about that today. When you go out this afternoon, or if you have lunch after this, when you sit down at dinner, take a minute and really just think about how that food makes you feel. Do you love it? Is it that moment? Or is it because you look around and your family is there? And just enjoy that. Be happy and grateful in that moment. I still have that feeling when I eat eggplant, and I still have that feeling when I sit down with my mom at the table. She got quiet. She's listening. I very much enjoyed spending time with you guys today. I want to stop a little bit early because I want to make sure that if you guys have questions or you want to talk about anything, that we can do that.
Thanks so much, Dr. Xavier. That was really so fascinating to hear about that. And I have to admit that eggplant is my favorite too. So that's wonderful to hear. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Xavier? It was really nice to hear about how many lessons there are in just growing food, and how you can share knowledge through things like growing food. And I didn't actually know. I mean, I fancy myself a bit of a gardener, but I didn't actually know about that strategy of planting the squash around the outside. I'll have to remember that to keep the squirrels out of our gardens.
Yep.
So
if you ever look at a large scale garden where you've planted either in rows or in patches, you'll see that the squash gets put around the outside. Most people assume that it's in part because it spreads.
yes, that's
and it is.
Yeah.
But if you know yourself, if you've ever put your hands on the spiny bits of the cucumbers, the squash, yeah,
it's not pleasant.
No, it's not going anywhere. I will say this though, when you're planting cucumbers, if you really want to have a good yield and B, a convenient cucumber picking situation,
Yeah,
we make tubes out of fence, like chicken wire type fence,
yeah.
and it stands out. It's usually about 4 feet tall, and we just make a circle about yay big, and we plant the cucumbers around the outside. You can plant more plants that way because
Wow.
they climb, and then the cucumbers usually grow on the inside. So you just reach in and pull them out, and it's easier to harvest them.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Does anybody else have any other questions for Dr. Xavier? How many people like gardening here? Put up your hands if you like gardening. Have you ever done gardening with your families? Oh, we see some hands going up. Nice. Does anybody want to share any gardening stories? I know the first time my daughter came across a worm, we had lots of stories there.
Yep.
Go ahead. Do you want to unmute yourself and share a gardening story?
So I recently started helping my granddad who has a garden in his backyard. And he's been doing it for a long time in his backyard, so he has a lot of tips and tricks. So he's been trying to teach me how to do it. So I help him plant all his crops, I guess, and then I help him for the harvest. And it's really nice to be able to spend that time with him.
That's awesome. And you know what? It's awesome twice actually, because it's great for him that you're doing it with him, and it's fun to be part of the gardening.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the part that you like the most? Do you like the planting part? Do you like the harvesting part? Do you love the weeding? Because some people I know really love to weed.
I like the harvesting part for sure.
Yeah.
It's like, it just feels so good when you finally, all your hard work kind of pays off at the end. So.
Yep. What do you guys grow? Do you grow lots of things?
Yeah, I think cucumbers. I know we grow peppers, chili, tomatoes, lots of tomatoes, because then my grandma likes to make sauces with it that we use for pizzas and other things like that.
Yep.
And yeah, we make I think onions as well, and garlic, I'm pretty sure.
Go ahead.
I like the planting.
And do you guys plant seeds, or do you plant also seedlings, little tiny plants?
Both.
Both? Us too. What's your favorite thing to plant?
I like cherry tomatoes.
Me too.
Yeah, I love tomatoes too. What if you pick them fresh and they seem extra squishy and juicy if you can bite them once you take them right off the plant. They're always so much fun, and
Yeah.
they're a little bit messy too. That adds to the fun. Does anybody else have any other questions for Dr. Xavier? Any other stories to share? Gardening stories? I really like that comment you pointed out, Dr. Xavier, about just spending time with family when you're gardening. That's so important.
It absolutely is, and people don't always think about that. So if I don't know, I'll ask you guys. My mom actually grows food for our community garden, so she organizes and plans out what turns out to be around 20 different boxes of plants. And when I say boxes, we're talking like 8 feet by 8 feet, so a fair square of land, and there's about 20 of them now. So she plants a lot of different things. But one of the things that happens is everybody comes out to help when they put it in the ground. And then people come, and then all during the season, they stop by to see how the thing that they planted is going. And then they get to the point where during the season, there's like certain days where certain people just stop by and they hang out for a little while and they have a cup of coffee and they spend time together, and they can say, oh, I was at the garden working on things. And part of working on things is visiting. It's being together. And then when the harvest happens, it's even more exciting because lots of people will come and they get together, and then they have classes and they talk about what they're going to prepare and like making sauces and stuff like that. My absolute favorite is definitely my mom's marinara, which is the easiest thing that you'll ever make because you throw tomatoes and onions and garlic and a little bit of oil in a pan and you roast it till it's brown. And then we put it in the blender. And you can put it in a can and you can store it for winter, or you can put it in a bag and you can put it in the freezer. And it's perfect for everything. Tons of fun things to do. I'm going to ask one last question, guys, and I just want you can hop on, or you can put it in the chat. Tell me what your favorite food is. And I'll confess mine is not a vegetable, even though my favorite vegetable is definitely eggplant, but my favorite food of all time is something my grandma used to make. What's your favorite food?
Yeah, looks like she's got cherries in there.
Oh, chicken biryani. I love chicken biryani.
Yeah.
Ice cream, also good. Mine is cinnamon buns.
Oh yeah, those are yummy too. Cinnamon buns, samosas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sweet potatoes?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have to admit, hot cinnamon buns are a big weakness.
Yeah, I think that you and I definitely would get along very well. We'll have eggplant for dinner and cinnamon buns for
There
dessert.
you go. There you go. That's perfect.
Gingerbread. I love gingerbread. My grandma also used to make gingerbread. Oh, pumpkin pie and ice cream is the best. I made a pumpkin pie October, I guess, for Thanksgiving. And my mom, we did it with almond flour because she can't have wheat. And the crust almost tasted like a shortbread cookie. It was so good. I'm like, oh, now we have to that's how we're going to make pumpkin pie from now on. That's it. We've changed our recipe. It's permanent for good. These are all great ideas, and these are all awesome foods. You guys picked lots of what I would consider my other favorites, definitely. I want to thank you guys for spending some time with me today. I very much enjoyed it. I appreciated you guys being here and talking to me. And also, I just want to say this. I love the background of your camera. That is awesome. I can't get that to work. I'm going to show you guys what happens if I turn my background on, okay? It's the strangest thing.
Oh, you disappear.
I disappear. Yeah. The wall doesn't, but I do.
Oh, but now we see like green. Oh yeah, I see what's going on. We've got yeah, you're sort of blending into that background.
I don't know what happened. I've tried it on plain
strange.
walls. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that before.
I really appreciated background. It looks so cool.
Yeah.
You guys have one? I've tried them, but I'm gonna have to get like a green screen. It'd be just my luck. I would wear a green shirt and then I would disappear completely.
Well,
it's the first time it's worked for him. Yeah, it's awesome. It looks great.
It does. It looks super. It looks very space agey.
Yeah. Such a pretty color too.
It is. It is. Well, Dr. Xavier, thank you so much for sharing this time with us.
Absolutely.
We loved hearing about all your favorite foods, and it's amazing how well you get to relate to people and carry on conversations when it's around food. And you know, within all of that conversation was so much learning about just growing food, and it's amazing how in Indigenous culture, how we store that knowledge and we move that knowledge forward with these kinds of stories. So thank you very much for sharing that experience with us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, it was a total pleasure. And so if everybody can give maybe Dr. Xavier a nice little clap. Yay. We want to just end off by reminding everybody, I'm just going to share my screen quickly. So I just wanted to remind everybody to visit our webpage, and up in the top right of our webpage here, remember that MCYU runs on donations. So if you get a chance, talk to your families, encourage them to donate whatever you can so that we can continue to bring our free programming to the community. And also remember to participate in the Join the Journey experience. So Erin is going to tell us a little bit more about process. I've put the QR code up, Erin. Maybe you can tell the kids and the families about how they can participate.
Thank you. So this year is a very exciting year because it's MCYU's 10th anniversary. And we want to share with you two very exciting events. The first event is a video montage, and we want to feature everyone who's a part of the MCYU family. So when you get a chance, please consider sharing some quick video wishes using the link pasted in the chat. Maybe you want to share a favorite memory with MCYU, or what you enjoy about our MCYU program, or what MCYU means to you. And the second fun event is a year-long journey, and we encourage you to join that journey. So it's where you attend at least 3 of the MCYU family lectures and complete 7 of the additional activities. There are currently 21 activities that are related to STEAM topics. And when you complete 10 events and get 10 stickers, your name will be entered into a raffle to win a really special prize that will be happening next spring. Everyone who's attending today's lecture has completed one of the 3 required lectures in our Join the Journey event. So you can either scan the QR code with a mobile device, or just simply use the direct URL pasted in the chat to log your participation on our Google form at this time.
That's great. Thank you so much, Erin. Hopefully everybody can remember to keep doing that. Let's now give Dr. Xavier a final thank you, and I wish everyone a wonderful afternoon. Thank you again, Dr. Xavier.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye now.
Bye.